Hey booktubers, welcome back to my channel. And if you are new here, welcome. So glad to have you here. So tonight is one of my very favorite times filming on this channel for you guys because this is none other than the Author's Spotlight. We started doing this, I started this last month, and we featured one of my favorites. You guys hear me talk about him all the time, and that is Mitch Albom. But tonight we're doing another one of my favorite authors, and that is none other than J.M Barrie, the author of one of my very favorite childhood stories, Peter Pan. So yeah, I thought we would do these author spotlights every month because we learn together about different authors, and that's always a good thing. And I find it very interesting, and hopefully you guys do too. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, a wonderful Mother's Day. I myself had a great day. I spent it with my children, and they gave me wonderful presents, and just spending the day with them I thoroughly enjoyed. So yeah, it was a really good day. And beginning of a new week, hopefully the weather holds out and stays nice here in New York. We've had a lot of rain this month, so I'm hoping we're supposed to have really good weather this week. So I'm crossing my fingers that holds true. So yeah, let's begin our journey with J.M. Barrie. This is a little biography about him. Like I said, we learned together. I did write some notes, and I kind of did it old school. I'm not looking at like an iPad or anything. So if you see me look away, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just looking at my notes because as we get older, we don't quite have the memory that we used to have when we were younger. So I'm going to just be looking at the notes from time to time to help me remember. So I just wanted you guys to know that I wasn't ignoring you guys. So let's begin, shall we? So James Matthew Barrie was born in Kirriemuir, Angus, to a conservative Calvinist family. His father, David Barrie, was a weaver, and his mom, Margaret Ogilvie, assumed her deceased mother's household responsibilities at a very early age. She lost her mother, and she took the role over as the mom of the house quite young. Barrie was the 9th child of 10. They had 10 children, and 2 of whom died before James Barrie was born. He was schooled, all of the children were schooled in what they call the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, in case they had possible professional careers. He was a small child, and he did bring attention to himself by doing a lot of storytelling very early on. His passport in 1934 said that he only grew to 5'3" and a half, which is very small for an adult, especially a male. And when he was 6 years old, his elder brother David, his mother's favorite child, died in an ice skating accident. And of course, his mother was devastated. So it was said that James Barrie, he tried to fill his brother David's place in his mother's attentions. And he started wearing his deceased brother's clothes, and he even started to whistle in the manner that his brother used to do as well. He told a story in his biography about his mother was sitting in a room by herself one day, and he entered the room, and she said, "Is that you?" thinking that it was his brother. And he said she seemed very disappointed when she realized that it was just him. So it shows you the depth of how he felt, that he was not one of his mother's, he wasn't very close to his mother, that she so much favored his deceased brother. So his mother found comfort in the fact that her son would forever be a boy, never to grow up and leave her. And eventually Barrie and his mother entertained each other with stories of her brief childhood books, such as Robinson Crusoe, works by fellow Scotsman and Walter Scott, and The Pilgrim's Process. At the age of 8, Barrie was sent to Glasgow Academy in the care of his eldest siblings, Marianne and Alexander, who also taught at the school as well. And when he was 10, he returned home and continued his education at the Forfar Academy. At 14, he did leave home for Dumfries Academy, again under the watch of Alexander and Marianne. He became a voracious reader at a very early age, and he was very fond of Penny Dreadfuls and the works of Robert Michael Ballantyne and James Fenimore Cooper. He did spend time at Dumfries with friends in the Garden Bray house playing pirates in a sort of odyssey long afterwards to become the idea for Peter Pan. And that was the play Peter Pan. He wished to follow a career as an author, but his family tried to dissuade him from doing that. They wanted him to go into ministry. With advice from Alexander, he came to a compromise with his parents. So he would attend a university, but would study literature. And Barrie enrolled at the University of Edinburgh in London, where he wrote drama reviews for the Edinburgh Evening Courant. He graduated and obtained an MA on April 21st, 1882. So he did started to write a few plays following a job advertisement found by his sister in the Scotsman. He worked for a year and a half as a staff journalist on the Nottingham Journal back in Kiramer. He had submitted a piece to the St. James Gazette, a London newspaper, using his mother's stories about the town where she grew up, renamed Thrums. The editor liked the Scotch thing so well, Barrie ended up writing a series of these stories. They served as the basis for his first novels. So he started to write plays. He started to get into doing being around, newspapers and editors, and he actually published a play called Better Dead in 1888 privately at his own expense, but it failed to sell. His two Tommy novels, Sentimental Tommy and Grizel, were about a young man who clings to childhood fantasy with an unhappy ending. The English novelist George Gissing wrote the former November 1896 and wrote that he thoroughly disliked it. So he had mixed reviews at the beginning when he started doing his writing. Meanwhile, Barrie's works returned to the theater, beginning with a biography of Richard Savage, written by H.B. Marriott Watson. It was performed only once, and it was critically panned. He immediately followed this with Ibsen's Ghost and Tool Up to Date in 1891, a parody Henrik Ibsen's dramas Hedda Gabler and Ghosts. So he did a couple of plays, like I said, that were not, the favorites of the critics at the beginning. And he did get married in 1894. He met and proposed to Mary Ansell, and she was an actress that he met, and they did marry on July 9th, 1894. And he bought a St. Bernard puppy who played a part in 1902 novel The Little White Bird. And of course, we know that the St. Bernard puppy was the idea for Nana in Peter Pan. He used Ansell's first name in many of the characters in his novel. Barrie also authored Jane Annie, a comic opera for Richard Deloley in 1893, which failed. He persuaded author Conan Doyle to revise and finish it for him. So his character Peter Pan first appeared in the novel Little White Bird. The novel was published in the UK by Hodder and Stoughton in 1902 and serialized in the US in the same year. In Scribner's Magazine, Barrie's more famous and enduring work, Peter Pan, of the boy who wouldn't grow up, had his first stage performance on December 27th, 1904, and that was at the West End's Duke of York Theatre. So the play introduced audiences to the name Wendy, and it was inspired by a young girl named Margaret that Barrie knew. She couldn't pronounce her R's very well, and she always used to call him Friendly. So you could see where Wendy came in. So that's how that came about. And in 1911, Barrie developed the Peter Pan play into the novel Peter Pan and Wendy. In April of 1929, Barrie gave the copyright. I thought this was so cool. He gave the copyright of Peter Pan to the Great Ormond Children's Hospital. It was a leading children's hospital in London, and I thought that was so cool that he did that. The current status of the copyright, they say, is somewhat complex. His final play was The Boy David, 1936, which dramatized the biblical story of King Saul. And the young David liked the role of Peter Pan. That of David was played by a woman, Elizabeth Bergner, of whom Barrie wrote the play. So in 1894, William Barrie bought a house in South Kensington in London, and beginning in 1908, his wife Mary had an affair with one of his business colleagues, Gilbert Cannon. He was 20 years younger than her, and when William, when he found out about the affair, he tried to he demanded that she of course stopped seeing him, and she refused. So to avoid scandal, because he didn't want the newspapers to find out about this, he offered a legal separation, but she still refused to stop seeing him. So he couldn't agree to anything with her. So he did file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. And he was granted the divorce in October of 1909. It was very painful for him, of course, and a couple of his friends tried to go to most of the newspapers and, tell them not to publish his story. It turns out that only about 3 of them did. So he did, it shows you what kind of man he was, or the character that he had. He did continue to support Mary financially, even after she married his business associate. And by he gave her an annual allowance, and it was handed over at a private dinner held at her and Barrie's wedding anniversary. He ended up, he would go very often to Kensington Gardens to walk his St. Bernard, and he came to meet the Lewin family, and they were a family with 5 children, all boys, and you can see how this is coming together for the Lost Boys idea. He got very acquainted with the family in 1897 after meeting them in Kensington Park. And then he did become a regular in their household and became very close to the children. The husband died in 1907. And so he became known as Uncle Jim to the children. And it turns out that the mother, Sylvia, died in 1910. And they were going to be engaged, her and Barrie. So she had made, the mom, Sylvia, had made James Barrie their legal guardian before she died. And so that's, again, where the idea for the Lost Boys came in. And he financially supported the children all the way up to adulthood. James Barrie did die of pneumonia at a nursing home on Manchester Street on June 19th, 1937. He was buried at Kirramar next to his parents and 2 of his siblings. And his birthplace at 9 Brechin Road is maintained as a museum by National Trust for Scotland. He did leave the bulk of his estate to his secretary, Lady Cynthia Asquith. And the surviving Lewin boys received legacies, and he made provisions for his former wife, Mary Ansell, an annuity during her entire lifetime. So again, he very much, his strength of character, you could say, he still continued to care for his ex-wife, even following her indiscretions, and continued to care for the boys and support them through their entire adulthood, up until they were ready to leave home. So it goes to show you the strength of his character and what kind of man he was. So yeah, he reminds me in many ways of Mitch Albom, with all his charities and the things that he does to help children, and really, is not just a person that gives money to these charities. He actually spends time with these children, and just like James Barrie actually, took on the role of their guardian, but he also continued to be in their life, well past, they left home in their adulthood. So he seems like he was just a wonderful, caring person, and it's another reason why I like him so much as an author too. So Peter Pan was probably the most played Disney movie that my children have seen. We watched it so many times. It is definitely one of my, if not the favorite Disney movie that I ever saw. And I loved the story ever since I was little. So of course, my children watch it many times, and they loved it as well. So that's it. That's our little author spotlight on James Barrie. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really did enjoy learning about the man as well. A lot of things I did not know about him, and that's why we do these spotlights. As book lovers, it really is so great to learn about the authors of these books, especially our favorite books, like Peter Pan is to me. So that's it, guys. That is a wrap for this channel. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please hit the like and subscribe button down below if you enjoyed this author spotlight. Next month we'll be doing another author spotlight, and I gave you guys a little bit of a spoiler in my last video when I did the review of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and of course next month is going to spotlight Betty Smith. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please keep hitting that like and subscribe button, and leave me comments below if you enjoy Peter Pan, if it's one of your favorite stories. I'd love to hear from you. So tune in Friday. Again, I will see you guys, and that's it. I'll see you later.